Hey, everybody. Chris here, and I'm super excited about this episode because we are going to walk through what this mythological flow state thing is and talk about how you can achieve it, and also talk about some ways that you can practice getting into flow state using a guided meditation. And if you look right below the pod feed on this one or in our YouTube video list, you'll see that guided meditation that you can deploy after you've listened to this episode. So you know how to do it. But, the best athletes who perform really well under pressure, they're not the ones who are like forcing themselves to focus really, really hard on something. You've heard me talk a lot about the E.B. White essay where his grandkids come back from picking flowers and the little girl has sort of, she's just kind of off in la la land. She's enjoying things. She's enjoying the moment, and she doesn't crush her flowers. But the grandson is like so serious and so intent on like bringing his grandfather some flowers that he crushes them in his hand. And that's a metaphor that I've used a ton in coaching athletes. And if you've read a bunch of my stuff, I'm sure you've heard it before. And that's what we really want to try and do if we are attempting to achieve flow state. And the guided meditation is about noticing when you have drifted away and then returning to the present. And again, like not, punishing yourself or yelling at yourself or anything like that, but getting back into a focused flow freeing state where you can really achieve your best. So today we're going to talk about what flow state is, why it might have been elusive to you in the past, and then we're going to give you a simple practice that will allow you to find healthy focus more often. And all you need is yourself, a 10-minute interval, and your own crazy monkey brain. So first of all, before we even get into flow state, I want to talk a little bit about the things that move us away from flow state. And that usually happens due to the stories that we're telling ourselves during training and racing. So before we talk about flow, we really have to talk about the way that we talk about ourselves. And in prepping for this episode, I went back and looked through my, hall of fame of like athletes melting down workout comments. And this is one that I got from a few years ago. This was a midweek tempo run that I had given this athlete as he was preparing to do Boise 70.3. Rough day today. I feel super fat. I'm sorry, it's just true. My wetsuit, as I discovered yesterday, is too big from last year as my body comp has changed. My tri bike, I now realize, is too small. I don't feel like I'm hitting these midweek runs like I should or the way that I want to. To top it off, I feel like I'm not in good enough shape to do well in Boise, and I have no time left to get fitter, unquote. Now, I know I've really felt that way before. And if you read last week's Substack, you'll recognize this quote because this is the one that I kicked off to talk about perception and getting away from bad. In this particular case, I was like, call me. And we got on a phone call. I adjusted his sessions, told him to hang out with his girlfriend, take Sunday off. And then here's what I heard back on Monday. Quote, Monday. Feeling better and giving myself some sympathy. I've never trained this hard and for this duration. It's new physically and mentally for me. I also have a competitive spirit that takes a beating through social media. And now I'm working at the Tri Shop in town. I see posts on Twitter of people doing these huge workouts. I talk with customers, doing tons of events, and I get down on myself for not being at their level. Yesterday, I had to say to myself, hey, relax. Your first triathlon was 10 months ago. Thus far, you've accomplished a ton in that 10 months, a ton. Be patient. Despite the fact that like I just had such pride in my athlete for being able to see this and let the feelings kind of settle and let the stress bucket drain a little bit by taking off some of the workouts from the weekend, but I didn't prompt him in any way. He just kind of checked back in, and this is exactly what you would want a coach to say to an athlete. And what's so wonderful is this athlete is learning to coach themselves in difficult moments, which, I wish I could be there for all my athletes on race day, but it's not possible. I can't clone myself. And And really, that's not the point. The point of all of this is that all of you learn how to achieve flow state and achieve the success you want yourself. I'm there as a guide, but I'm certainly not the person like leading you along like a horse. So, the big thing I want you to take away from this section is that bad is a judgment. It's not a fact. When you label a workout as bad, you're not actually describing the workout. You are simply describing your reaction to it. But remember, like a bad interval, it's a learning opportunity. We would never tell a writing student that, like, your poem sucks because that doesn't help them improve at all. Like, that doesn't give them any guidance as what they could do. And when we just come out and describe something as bad, we're doing the same thing as saying your poem sucks. Like, there's no path to improvement away from that. And the whole point of all this stuff is that we learn and get better and feel all the good things that are associated with achievement and healthy competition and improvement. And so that's why we really want to step away from this judgment. Because if you think about it, judgments are something that should happen after the fact. It's not over till the fat lady sings. And like, we want to let workouts and races be what they're going to be. But if you start judging it before the workout or the race is over, you are taking yourself out of the moment. And we're going to talk in a second about flow state, but here's a little hint. Flow state is about presence. When you're in a place of judgment, you are inherently looking back and stepping outside of the experience. So we really want to train our brains to not do that. And like, when you feel yourself drifting towards judgment, to bring it on back to what you can control, your attitude and your effort. So perception is really the lever here. And in this particular instance, this athlete by themselves had reframed everything a few days later, and nothing had changed about the workout. What had changed is that his context had shifted, and he began to feel a little differently once the emotions started to come down. And another part of racing and training effectively is noticing and honoring your emotions, but not necessarily letting them take you over, because once again, that's something that's going to take you out of the present. The whole game here is about recognizing how your perception drives your response to it. And so you have more control over these things than you think. And the reason we're talking about this first rather than jumping into flow state is it's really, really important for you all to realize that you can shift your experience of something by shifting your perception. Go read Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind, which is about psychedelics, but also has like a really, really good section on how perception of other states can change your perception back here in the real world. Okay, part two. Why would we treat intervals like a meditation in order to achieve flow state? Well, okay, first of all, what is flow state? We hear about it all the time, but flow is a psychological state of total absorption in a task. It's defined as a real optimal state of consciousness when you are doing anything, training, racing, creating, teaching. I mean, anything you do, you can find some flow in it, some total absorption. Your feelings and your performance are usually at the best. And it involves being fully focused on what you're doing, but not so focused that, again, you're killing it. The way that we want to focus is the sense where everything else disappears and your mind goes quiet. And this heightened attention allows your actions to happen with ease, even if the thing you're doing is incredibly difficult. And so it's not about like just completely focusing on the task at hand. It's about focusing at the task at hand, but letting all the other tasks drift into the background. And we're going to talk about how that works. So you might have tried meditation at some point in the past. I have tried a lot of it. And usually when you start, the first thing that happens is you sit there during the meditation thinking about everything else except meditation. And then we conclude that we're bad at meditation. There's another judgment. But sitting there and your mind wandering off is meditation. You're doing it perfectly right. There is no wrong way to do it. What we want to train in meditation is noticing that the brain has drifted away and coming back to the present. And this is the reason why that meditation very often has you focus on your breath. because it's something that you can focus on when your eyes are closed and you're just sitting in one place. It really gives you a process to hang your attention on. And of course, like your mind drifts away again and, you bring it on back. And we know by now from hundreds of podcasts and things like that out there that high performers meditate, but it doesn't mean that if you meditate, you're going to be a high performer. It's one of those things where, like, most high performers are meditators, but not all meditators are high performers. The reason why people perform well in whatever walk of life that they choose is because they have a really profound ability to stay present, be in the room with whatever is going on, a conversation, a meeting, a puzzle, an interval, a workout, a lecture, anything like that. Anytime you see somebody really functioning at their best, or when somebody is alone and doing something creative, it's that ability to stay present with a task. And if you have ever lost track of time while you're doing something, congratulations, you have been in flow state. You've been there. And I'm pretty sure that's an experience like everybody has had at some point or another. So just think back to the last time you literally lost track of time doing something. You're not really going to be able to remember what it felt like because you were only focused on one thing. And so everything else kind of drifted to the back. But that sort of sense when it was done, when you kind of shake yourself awake again and be like, whoa, where did that 75 minutes go? You've just dropped into a very powerful flow state. And how this works in training and racing is you're not lost in a past workout. You're not anxious about an upcoming race or anxious about something that's going to happen during this race. You just stay present with whatever's happening right then. And you make decisions in real time as they come up. You try not to project yourself too far into the future or think about the mistakes that you made already in the race. When I was a goalkeeper in college, I had a really hard time putting mistakes behind me, and I would kind of think about it and think about it and think about it, and it would totally take me out of the game. It would take me out of flow state. And when you're a goalkeeper, being incredibly focused on the task at hand is really important. You really need your body to be ready to move and your brain quiet so it can react faster than you think it's able to. So we're not training meditation, we're training a return to the present. That's what we want. That's what really good high performers do. Okay. So you already have a built-in meditation timer, even if you've never done it before, and it's called an interval. You can do this in any kind of interval, any kind of workout. It might be a good idea to start on like your indoor trainer, but don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to ever close your eyes when you're doing this kind of thing. Every interval you do gives you a contained window where you can practice coming back to yourself, your breath, your cadence, your posture, your effort. You don't need like a cushion or a tatami mat or like a trip to a monastery. Um, you just need a set of intervals and a willingness to pay attention. Okay, so how do we actually do this? Here is like a 4-step practice. And if you listen to the bonus episode right down below, you will also get a chance to do this in real time without all of my contextualizing and stuff like that. So this is not a glamorous process, but it's also not complicated, and it'll work as long as you're willing to do it without expecting immediate results. So, okay, first thing, the next time you do an interval session, you're just going to watch. You're not going to fix anything yet. But next hard session, just track where your mind goes during one of the intervals in it. So maybe you're doing like 4x10 at FTP. And if you're on a trainer and you can write down, have like a little whiteboard next to you and a marker so you can just make a hash every time that your brain drifts away to something else. The TV show you're watching, a text message that just rolled in, stress about work, thinking about your partner, thinking about the hangout you got with your friends later. We think about a lot of other things than what is going on with our bodies and our brains during a session. So first of all, first thing you do is just keep track of how many times your focus drifts away. What we're trying to do here is point out the fact that you are not your thoughts. If you were your thoughts during an interval, like It's pretty crazy. You'll actually notice how chattery your mind is, and that's not who you are. And as soon as you begin to notice just how often your focus drifts away, you are on the path to being quite a bit more self aware. Okay, step two. We call this one notice, name, and return. Once you've done a few sessions where you are just noting, is the actual meditative practice here. When you're watching, when your brain drifts away, it's time to act on it. When your mind drifts away in an interval, just say to yourself, "Ah, I've drifted. Back to work," or whatever phrase works to you. And then return to whatever fundamentals are there. Smooth pedal stroke, focus on your catch and pull in the water, nice tall running posture, good hands, that kind of thing. Keep your attitude positive and don't punish yourself for drifting. Every time you drift, just be like, "Oh, this is part of it. This is an opportunity." My brain is like a golden retriever in a park. The skill that we're developing here is like a retractable leash, so you can kind of bring the golden retriever back like kindly without just kind of jerking them around. But that's what we're trying to train here, is basically the way to not put your brain on a tether, but keep it a little closer where it can focus on the things that really matter to you. Okay, step three. Now you are going to repeat this process until it becomes automatic. So every time you have hard sessions, like, try this out. At first, it is literally going to feel like you're focused like 1 to 5% of the time. And that's okay. You're building a new skill, and new skills always take time. They feel awkward. Over weeks, you will start to notice that you're drifting less and you're returning faster. So that is the on ramp to flow state. It's not this like lightning bolt that strikes you. It doesn't happen by chance. It doesn't just come out of the blue. Like, you have to do the work ahead of time to create the conditions that make flow state possible. And because flow state is kind of mythical, it's really hard to figure out how to generate it. A lot of athletes just kind of hope that's going to happen. And we all know that, hope is not a strategy. And this is a really, really good way to start setting the conditions where you will be able to achieve flow state more often. Because we know that what we want with flow state is we want to subtract the outside information and leave our brains able to just be present and reacting to what is happening in every moment. And that is where you truly hit flow state. Everything else kind of quiets down, and it's like the performance starts taking care of itself. If you read last week's Substack, you know that the mind is something that can really get in your way. And you've also read some stuff that I've put out about how emotions can really get in your way. It doesn't mean that we want to be robots. Flow state is not a turning off of the brain and the heart. Flow state is being able to trim down the parts of your brain and your thinking and feeling that get in the way of your body doing its thing. Because all we want to do on race day is express the training that we've already done. And the biggest things that get in our way are thinking about things, feeling things, getting distracted and making mistakes about patience, about pacing, about nutrition, about the course, about our competitors. And we really want to only have the amount of thinking we need to do what we're trying to do. And again, as we've talked about before, you are going to have feelings that come up on race day that might not be totally helpful or productive. And flow state is a way of, again, quieting everything but the essential. So ideally, the emotion that you're feeling when you are in flow state is kind of joy. Like, you're having a good time because you're just focused on the process. And we all got into this sport because we did an event or a race or something where it was just fun. We weren't focused on achieving yet. And we probably really enjoyed it because we were kind of hitting flow state because we weren't, loading that particular performance up with a million expectations and thoughts and fears and feelings and excitements and all that stuff. Those are all things that can get in our way. And what we really want to be doing as we are trying to achieve flow state is just the return to what's essential. And so your effort, your attitude, what needs to happen with that athlete who's 12 to 15 meters in front of you? Do you need to back off? Do you need to pass them? All that stuff. And the goal here is to really kind of get you in the moment. So tons of athletes spend time trying to manufacture flow state, playlists, visualizations, pre-race routines. Those things all work because those are ways that you can take some mental load out of your thinking, and friction really gets in the way of flow state. So we want just a little friction for something to actually rest our attention on. And by doing those things, visualizations, pre-race routines, playlists, that's good. You are already practicing something. You're stepping into something that you've done before. So have the same playlist for every race. Have the same pre-race routine for every race. As you're approaching the race, do your visualization work. It's really important. But remember that the real driver of flow state is presence. You come back from the bad workout story. You come back from the mistake you made during the swim. You get out of the comparison spiral with other athletes and social media accounts. Coming back from wherever your brain went during that third interval, your grocery list, or, something you gotta say to your partner later that you're not excited about. But just keep practicing the return. And if you do that, presence will develop. And out of that presence, you're likely to get into flow state a little bit more often. Drop me a line if you try this. Let me know how it went for you. And I'm always happy to hear whether you found this helpful or like completely off my rocker. And if you do find that I'm completely off my rocker, maybe we can chat and I can help you kind of reframe a good approach to this. But I would really love to know how you make out. Try the guided meditation just down below, and give it a shot in your next workout. It cuts out a lot of this context. And basically, there's a little intro and then 10 minutes of me with music, working you through a 10-minute interval. And it's something that you can return to whenever you need it or want it. But as always, thank you so much for coming to the Infirmary Campers. I hope you found this helpful and that you are feeling better soon. Thanks a lot.